cycle.
Right.
And it's the same with women, right? Who go after men that aren't good for them.
Right.
They never take a look and they're like, why am I attracting this sort of man?
Right.
Why do I want to be in these sort of relationships? And the second that they do and they really kind of work on those things, a lot of times they'll break out of that cycle. But until then, they're dating the same type of man, just in a different form.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then they're like, why is this happening? And it's like, you have some things that you have to deal with. And it's the same thing with men. They're like,
Right.
these women all suck. You probably are attracting women that are
Right.
the same emotional mess as you.
Right.
And there's really not much you can do because, again, you have to work on yourself first.
Yeah. 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 It's and that's why, like I said, it just comes down to pride. Because if someone tells me there's some flaw in my work, right? There's something that I'm doing wrong, and I'm prideful, then I fix it. Like I'm embarrassed by oh shit, like I don't want someone to see that I'm doing something, if I don't have any pride in myself, then I just defend it. Then
Right.
I'm just like, it's not me, it's you, right?
Yeah.
It's like,
it's
but
your eyes,
it's like,
not my work.
Right, yeah. So that's the thing, is like it comes from that same place. It's like having that, and it's like, it's weird because, pride is considered to be a bad thing, but it's like, it's more of the pride in the form of dignity. It's like, I have such a high respect for myself and high standards for myself that I couldn't imagine a woman paying for a meal for me because I have that amount of standard and respect for myself. I think I'm that capable. You know what I mean? That's where it comes from. So that's and the second part of it is the other biggest problem with men today, with a lot of men today, is that they can't handle adversity, right? Because adversity is so important for a man in order to become a man. It shapes him, right? Just like a sword is put into the iron is put into the fire, and hammered on in order to sharpen that blade. That is the same as building the masculinity in a man. And so many men today, whether it's because they've been coddled by their mothers, or I don't know what the cause is, or maybe it's just because we're living, there's that whole hard times create strong men,
people,
strong men create good times create weak men. So we're in the weak men cycle, unfortunately, because there's been too much good times. It's been too easy. How long ago did we have a major war, World War II, and, where men had to learn how to be men, and, at 14 years old.
Well, you don't have to wait for a war to do it. You just have to have the self-discipline.
But
right?
you need adversity.
Right.
And you need to be able to face adversity, right? And it's like so many men, when they're presented with a challenge, right, they back down. And that's also why the whole passport bros thing is like, okay, so it's harder to date Western women. There's some challenges there. So you're backing away from the challenge to go somewhere where it's easier. That lacks pride, right? It's like, and it's like going to the video game and going, it's on normal mode, and instead of going to insane mode, you're like easy mode.
Yeah.
You switch the difficulty to easy because you can't beat on normal mode, right? It's like, no, I'm saying, hey, you're like, no, I can take insane mode. That's what you should be as a man. But so many men today are afraid of adversity. They just can't handle it. They can't face it. They can't overcome. And they're doing themselves a huge disservice by finding the easy. And it's the same thing. We have pornography easily accessible, right? That's, again, they're not facing the adversity of going out there if they want to get laid and having to actually go and talk to women and actually figure out some game and learn how to, they could just get it right there. It's like, or prostitutes. We talked about this on the episode before too. It's like, there's so many things that make it so easy.
And
for
they're
men.
not really learning anything.
Right.
Yeah. And I think it too comes from them being in this emotional state, right?
Yeah.
Like, because if you look at masculine women, which they're probably going to get upset about.
Right.
They're oftentimes not as emotional, and they're getting stuff done, and they're becoming, entrepreneurs and CEOs and things like that now because they're in a more masculine place.
Right.
And it's almost to a point where women have more pride than these men do.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And that's also why if a woman has all this pride, do you think she's really going to be with a man who doesn't?
No.
Unless she's okay with being, the one in charge.
Right.
Then, maybe she'll be with a man like that. But to be honest, even really prideful women don't want a man that has no pride in himself. They want a man who has pride as much as she does.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. So that's why it has to be this way, right? Because guys are constantly like, well, why don't women fix it? Why don't women, and again,
which there are things that women need to fix,
right? And I agree with the things, like I said, I know all the things. I don't talk about them on this podcast because there's no need to to disparage women and say all this stuff. We talk about some of the things, but it's not. I don't need to go and tell you that prostituting yourself on OnlyFans is bad, or like sleeping with lots of men. It's like, yeah, we talk about that stuff when it comes up, but I don't need to just keep on harping on that because that doesn't matter. What matters is that men step up and take responsibility and take charge because they have the ability to change these things, or at least in their own life. You know what I mean? It's like, but they lack the pride to do it. That's the thing.
And here's the real reason in my mind. So even if a ton of women became super feminine and everything that these men want, right? These men still haven't healed. They will ruin that relationship.
Yeah.
It will not make him be the man that he needs to be because at the end of the day, he has to take accountability and he has to gain the pride and whatnot. So even if women became what these men want, they're still not men. They're not really masculine in the state that they are right now. And you cannot tell me that these men, if they found a woman like that who was like, yeah, I like you, they wouldn't just jump in and marry them and go ahead, right? And so they're not actually bettering themselves in any way. But on the flip side, if these men become more manly and more masculine, they could flip. They could find more feminine men or women that they want, and they can flip more masculine women to be more feminine because they will trust this man. So that's why a lot of times we stress that men do typically need to go first in this sort of healing process because they have more influence.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. That's
because women do not. Because even if a woman is exactly what you want, you haven't become more of a man. It's just the easy mode. Like you said, you just found somebody that wants to be with you, but now you still have all these issues and that will still bleed over into your relationship, even though it might not be the same sort of issues you might have with a more masculine woman. But if you become the man and you become more masculine, now you will be able to get more feminine women who are just naturally more feminine. And you might be able to get these women who are more masculine to become more feminine. And so you have more options. Better than